Next to me is Mr. Joe Piccirillo, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, who started with us this summer. We're here tonight to talk about the state of the Hopatcong Borough School District. We have a lot of information to share. We'll probably present for close to an hour. We will gladly answer any questions you have. We have question cards there if you want to write it out. Bring it up over here to the table. We promise every question you have will be addressed.
There's also a sign-in sheet before we get started. It asks for your name and your signature, but also there's an in-between column there where you can list in which stakeholder group you are a part of. So we tend to think that all just parents come to these meetings, but we recognize that some of you are members of different organizations in town, just have an interest as a taxpayer or a business owner, and so we want that information. If you're willing to give it to us, it gives us a better picture of who comes out to these meetings.
This is a single issue meeting on the state of the district, but there are a significant number of subtitles. We will talk about the importance of parent and citizen input. We will talk especially about facilities and some of the improvements that will be made in the very near future. We will talk about our curriculum, which is in the process of a revision circumstance, which we'll explain in detail. We'll talk about social and emotional educational strategies, which is an item that many of us are concerned about with our current population of children. We'll talk about cultural enhancement as our district changes a little bit in terms of demographics. And we'll talk about the future, which we are very interested in and want to make sure is one that is a positive for our children. I know one of the first parents who came in said she was a kindergarten parent. The kindergarten group is important to us because what we do with that group of children has a bearing on our future. One of our goals that we ask you to support has to do with the idea of us putting forth programs that you feel are appropriate to our population, so that there is trust and faith in our school district to do what is best for our children. As parents and citizens, you have a number of roles, some of which some people take very seriously and some people don't, okay? So we have advisory groups where we ask parents to come in. It might be a focus group, it might be a basic skills parent meeting, it might be a special ed CPAC meeting. We gain information from those groups, constantly learning what your priorities are, we hopefully share what our priorities are, and that we somehow meet in between. This year I started a superintendent faculty advisory committee, which has a flowing number of staff members who meet on their own time with Joe and myself to provide us with input. That is how we came about some of the items related to our curriculum revision plan, 5-year plan, which will go before the Board of Education at our next meeting. Input on topics is vital. So one of the facilities items that we're going to be doing centers on replacing the high school track. Now, why did I think that was an important idea? Because enough citizens brought that up to me as being a concern. The board supported that as a concern. So this summer, we will be tearing up the old track and putting in a brand new surface, and it will be green. Communication is a two-way street. Joe, could you talk about the app for a few minutes?
Sure. So we had a lot of feedback from parents. This is very soon after I was hired. We had a meeting just like this in the beginning of the year. And a lot of parents came to me and said that they want to know more about the things that their children are up to and all the opportunities that are available, but there's so many different places to go for all the information, and so they felt a little bit overwhelmed in their efforts to get the facts. And so we brainstormed with Kyle, our tech sort of guru for the district, and came up with a way to create our own district app. So the app went out in beta about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and now the app is fully available for any Android devices, and we're like a week or two away from it getting to the Apple devices. It's just extra paperwork that Apple makes you do. But if you just go and search on your Android device, Hopatcong, you'll see the app, and it's basically a one-stop shop to get all information regarding your child. You can contact a child's teacher directly from their schedule with a click of a button. You can either go to an email or to call their voicemail. You can see their grades, see the lunch menu, see activities and calendars customized to you, and get newsfeed customized to you. So if you have students in only 2 buildings, you'll only get information on those 2 buildings, nothing else. So hopefully it's a way of not drinking from a fire hose all the time for parents and community members. So I would love for you to check it out. And if you had questions about it, you can definitely reach out to me, send me an email. Kyle and I are expecting, once this hits the Apple devices, we're going to start pounding the pavement and talking to community members about how to use it so you feel more comfortable. But if you want to look at it now, send me your feedback. The good thing about us doing it in-house is as you give us feedback, we can make it better to serve the needs of you. So,
Thank you, sir. Another item that's been brought to our attention as a priority has to do with the parental costs towards higher education. So what Mr. Piccirillo and I have been working on strongly has to do with increasing the number of opportunities where a student at the high school can take concurrent college credits. That often goes over people's heads. Well, please let me explain something. 30% of our kids go to 2-year colleges. So we have an arrangement with Sussex County Community College, and if your child is going to go there, he or she can take, at $100 a credit, a significantly reduced fee, as those students can take a significant number of college courses. And when they graduate high school, they can have as many as 15 or 20 credits towards the community college. That's a pretty heavy piece of change saved if your child is going to a community college. Likewise, we're trying to work with 4-year colleges. Joe had a breakthrough with Seton Hall, a university that has served some of our citizens in town. Joe, real quick, what is the Seton Hall situation?
So with Seton Hall, there are a handful of courses that they could take. So far, we've had 4 approved. So sculpture, physics, CP, music theory, AP, and pre-calc honors. And essentially, the process is we had to submit our curriculum to Seton Hall. We had to submit all of our teacher credentials, and they have vetted us and deemed that our curriculum, in the way it's taught with the content, is literally the same as if they had done it in Seton Hall. So what will happen is students that opt into this, no one has an obligation to do this, can, for $100 a credit, can get Seton Hall credits for those courses. Now, to put it in perspective, a Seton Hall course right now at the college level is about $1,000 a credit. So $100 a credit, significant saving.
I have a question. My daughter got her, schedule for next year. They're working on it. The only thing I've seen so far that was offered is English.
We got the 3 additional courses approved by Seton Hall a few days ago. So we will update
Will
that.
they be able to go back?
Yeah,
Yes,
they can
absolutely.
definitely go back.
Absolutely.
And then the Sussex County Community College credits are at 1/3 of the price, $75 a credit for Sussex County Community College. That is about $225 a credit if you were to do it at the college.
William Patterson was one of the schools.
Good question. So, I believe when we last had our meeting here all together, I expressed that I was going to be barking up the William Patterson tree. And I'll tell you what happened. William Patterson, while they were very willing to work with us, they have built within their adjunct agreement for the school that if there is a concurrent credit in a high school, they must send a college professor to observe that class with some sort of frequency. And I get why they do that, because they don't want to lose jobs at the college level. I have no issue with that. But as a result, they required us to have at least 10 students per semester in each class signed up to do concurrent. And so I had a very friendly, frank conversation with the dean and said, that's not going to work for us. We're going to go somewhere else. And the next week I went somewhere else. So I'm open to doing it again. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not a tenable circumstance for us.
We will continue to try to expand that with other colleges.
Yeah, question?
Yeah, wouldn't it be important to mention that the credits earned at Seton Hall are transferable?
Yeah,
So the youngster doesn't have to attend Seton Hall. He or she may attend any university that will accept Seton Hall credits on a transfer basis.
well, that is correct. Any student that takes a college course, whether it be at Sussex County Community College or Seton Hall, will get a transcript from that school as if they actually took the courses in the school. So it's not, some side agreement. It's an actual transcript that they'll get, and then that they can get that to any other school for transfer.
And taking the Seton Hall credits concurrently guarantees admission to the school.
What did you say?
If they have if they meet certain requirements.
It guarantees admission to the school.
Seton Hall.
Yeah, if they take the Seton Hall
Answer one of
concurrent.
my questions.
Now, if they get a C or a D, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Like,
I'm going to ask if you have questions to please write them on the cards so we can get the flow of this going, and we promise we'll answer every question. One of the other items regarding parental relief of college costs has to do with 529 plans, which are now legal plans put forth by the government. We have information on those. If you would like information that's reasonably understandable, we will provide it to you. All you have to do is send Joe or myself an email. One of the items we look for in terms of citizen input has to do with partnerships. Okay, we've told you about partnerships with colleges. We will be starting a number of courses that Joe will spend some time detailing. But for example, we have the ability to put it, we already started this week, the construction skills course. We will be looking for people who are in the construction business to be part of our advisory group and to spend some time with our students, if they can, in an instructional capacity. We will do the same thing with cosmetology. That lab will be built this summer. Students will be able to sign up for cosmetology starting in September. And again, we will tap into some of the number of salons that are in town with the purpose of creating partnerships. I had a meeting here when I first started. We had a meeting, and a gentleman from the audience gave me his card. He said he was a plumber and that he worked for a good firm. And when we had to shut down Hudson Maxim and winterize it, he calls me up. He says, "You remember me from the card?" I said, "Yeah, his company gave us the best price, winterized the school." And partnerships and connections are vital. The reason we do parental and citizen input is because we try to be on the same page. When I got here, I believe that I found a high school that was doing an excellent job of serving the 30 to 35% of kids who go to four-year college. I also learned that we had closed down certain things like wood shops and vocational type courses. So when Joe explains the CTE programs, that will explain how we are revitalizing some of those things for kids who enter the workforce. Almost 30% of our kids graduate high school and go military or workforce. We need to make sure that we serve them. So we're looking for affirmation that the public understands what we're trying to do in terms of making a comprehensive high school more comprehensive. So let me talk about facilities for a few minutes. Those of you who come to see performances know that the high school roof, auditorium roof has leaked for some time. We will be repairing that section of the roof either at spring break or the very beginning of the summertime. That is a priority item. Some of those leaks are almost affecting the equipment, and we need to do something about it. So that is an example of what we're doing facilities-wise. At the high school, as we speak, deliveries are being made on a new fitness center. The fitness center will take over most of the auxiliary gym. It will have state-of-the-art equipment that can be used by students in instruction, can be used by teams in training, and will hopefully be open to the public at times that is appropriate to everyone's schedule. That fitness center stuff is arriving. I'm hoping to have it set up by the spring in the auxiliary gym. As I already mentioned, we hired a construction teacher. That course started this week. We have a small number of students signed up. Next week, Joe and myself will arm ourselves at one of these tables. We will begin to demonstrate to students some of the stuff that's going to exist next year that doesn't exist now. That includes new AP courses, that includes new CTE programs, it includes new clubs, and I'm very excited about some of the stuff we're doing. I'll be having a fundraiser for the purpose of getting together money for students who are interested in becoming investors. We will start an investors club with students. Volunteer from the community has offered to do this with experience in that area. And that's one of the types of things that we'll be doing. At the high school, we've begun working on a research and development center. That more additional stuff has been ordered for that. Where is this money coming from? You will recall I detailed the sale of a permanent easement of the cell tower up on the fields near the senior center. We didn't sell any land. We sold a permanent easement which allows the company that owns the cell tower permanent access to it if we sell the rest of the land. This has provided the district with $2 million. $1 million this year, $1 million next year. It cannot be used to sustain the regular budget, but it can be used for new initiatives and new facilities. And that's what the board is graciously allowing us to do. And in the midst of state aid cuts and in the midst of all this craziness, the ability to have that money for new initiatives is a vital one. We will have, with the second year of that money, we will use significant improvements in science rooms at the high school. We will improve the culinary area at the high school. We will do a remake of the library at the high school. We're trying to work on air conditioning at Hopatcong Middle School. We're also, as you know, if you walk into the innovation lab there, they now have 4th and 5th graders working alongside the middle school kids. We will put a classroom in there, a literally plastic classroom that will be see-through, but that will be something that they could have a little more ability to control noises and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff facilities-wise that we're using, A, from the cell tower money, and B, from a very healthy capital reserve fund. The capital reserve fund essentially is a board's savings account for capital projects that are on our long-range facility plan. We're very fortunate to have that. And part of that, you recall the mold crisis before I got here? The board had insurance that paid about $600,000 of our expenses back. And all of that money went into capital reserve.
When you look at some of the facilities that Mr. D is mentioning, a lot of these facilities are facilities that the whole community can benefit from. So I want to highlight that fact. So when you're talking about the track, this is something that impacts everyone. When you talk about the auditorium, an athletic center, we're trying to come up with how can we use the money that we have to improve facilities that will benefit the students, but also give us benefits for the entire community.
Next section I'd like to spend a few minutes on has to do with curriculum. As stated, the Board of Education will be asked to approve a 5-year curriculum revision plan, starting with ELA, English Language Arts. That'll be the first priority. Today, Joe had a meeting of voluntary ELA teachers after hours debating what we need to do about English Language Arts, and it was a heavy discussion. And that'll be our first. We're hoping that by the summer, we will have the input necessary from staff members to implement a new ELA curriculum. Please understand, staff members in this district, and this is them speaking, not me, but this is the testimony I get. They have had things imposed on them over the years. The training, a lot of the training took place at the beginning, but was not followed through with, and they're feeling that they were not supported. And we told them very specifically, Joe and I will not impose any program that encompasses the whole K-12 circumstance. CTEs are small individual programs. Some people say we impose them. We'll see. If they work, it'll be because the kids are interested, and I'm sure they will. But we're not going to say this is the math curriculum that we need to use. This is the math program we need to use. This is the reading program we need to use. We need agreement from the staff on this. And we have a wide variety of opinions being shared by staff members. So we find that debate to be healthy. I hope they do too. And there'll be more to follow on that. But we are hoping by summer we will have, the board will approve the hiring of teachers to revise curriculum that is appropriate to the developmental and socioeconomic levels of our kids, so that our kids have a chance to compete.
And understand, we are trying to build a consensus, as Mr. D says, 100%, because we all need to be moving in the same direction. We all need to have buy-in. But that doesn't mean that I don't come with an opinion, Mr. D doesn't come with an opinion. The beauty of the conversation that we had today and we've had prior is I can be upfront with my feelings, and I hope, and I think the teachers know this, I have an opinion, but that does not mean that is the way it needs to go. Because truthfully, I've been here since August, Mr. D's been here another year, more than that, but there are a lot of folks that are in these meetings that are meeting with us that have been here for 20 years. The amount of information they have about this community is something that I can't discount. So I can bring my knowledge from other areas, we can have a dialogue, and together we can come up with what the best direction is for our district.
As I stated a number of times, career and technical education, CTE courses, are a direction that will hopefully allow us to make our comprehensive high school more comprehensive. Joe, a few minutes on the different programs that have been approved. Getting a CTE program approved is like a mission. It's like a secret mission. It's mission impossible. Joe has been working hard on it.
I would like to speak directly into the camera. No, we have to have a little fun. Okay, so CTE programs, if I could explain this in very quickly.
He would, but he can't.
So CTE programs, it means career and technical education. So what it entails is a 3-course sequence. So 3 courses, 3 years sequentially in a career area. These CTE programs also have within their scope what's called a CTSO, a Career and Technical Student Organization, which, in an easy way to think about it, is a club tied to that career path. Additionally, CTE programs have the opportunity to earn third-party industry certificates. Example, childcare. They have the opportunity to get a CDA cert, which enables them to go and work directly in childcare facility upon graduation. So these are employable skills. Also, many of our CTE programs have within them an opportunity to earn college credit, which Mr. D spoke briefly about before. And they have advisory committees, which are made up of community members, college members, all folks from the industry, so that we can have a really strong program. So we right now have 3 programs that I just received word this week were approved at the first level in the DOE, and that is after like 3 to 4 months of back and forth nonsense. But the good news is we are very close on 3 programs should be approved by the end of next week. And those are cosmetology, childcare, and broadcast journalism. So you may ask, Joe, what made you choose these programs? And I have a few answers for you. One of the difficulties in getting a CTE program approved is staffing. Not just any teacher can teach these courses. So one of the first things I did here, and some of you staff members will remember this, is I sent out a survey to all the staff, and I asked, did you come out of a different industry into education? Do you have experience in another field? Do you have a college major or a master's that I don't know about? In some cases, that empowers them to get a CTE cert. The other thing I have to look at, because the DOE will not approve otherwise, is that these are emerging fields that do one of three things. Let's see if I can get them all. They have to be growing fields in terms of jobs that are available. They have to be high specialization skill type jobs that normally require a separate certification, so not anyone can just jump in. And they have to be able to earn a livable wage. You have to check 2 out of those 3 categories or you don't get approval. So cosmetology requires a specific cert and is, if you look at the top 10 fastest growing fields over the next 15 years in this area, cosmetology is listed among those top fields. Also, same thing goes for childcare. Did you know, I know all these nerdy statistics, did you know that 67% of New Jersey residents send their children to childcare? And did you know that's up 20% from just 15 years ago? So, I do. So, this is just indicative of the fact that childcare is a growing field. And then you're talking about things like construction, growing field. The other 2 CTE programs that we're working on is athletic training, which is a growing field in this area particularly. And lastly, broadcast journalism. It's not a growing field in Sussex County. However, New York City is the largest city in the world for this field, and it's expected to grow in New York City by 9% in the next 10 years. So we're able to justify all of those and prove, luckily we have teachers with those certs available, that we can have these programs for kids. So I think these are really great opportunities. Last point, Mr. D, I'm sorry, you're starting to pace, is there are 3 pathways that we're trying to work on for all students in our school. 1, Mr. D mentioned 30% that don't go on to 2-year or 4-year school, they go directly into the workforce or military. Then there's another segment of that population, 38%, that go right into 2-year schools, and about 32% that go to 4-year schools. We want to serve each of those pathways simultaneously. Many of these programs do, because when you look at a lot of the programs, their function sets you up to either go to 4-year, 2-year, or straight to the workforce, and it's your choice, and you can all be together in the same course in the same program. So we've aimed to do that, not because we have an agenda, but because these are the students that we serve, and it's our imperative, it's our legal responsibility and ethical moral responsibility to serve them all.
Joseph, am I correct in saying that someone to be eligible for a cert had to work 8,000 hours in the field? That number right? Or is it different to different fields? It's different in each of the fields, but a general rule of thumb that I would say the majority are 8,000 over the 8,000 within 4 years, all within the last 10 years. Does that make sense? To them it does.
Good. So some folks do come out of industry, but it's been 15 years since they came out of industry, and so they've been frustrated at not being able to get those certs.
I mentioned before that when I arrived here, I felt that the high school was doing an excellent job with students who were going to 4-year colleges. We're not resting on those laurels. Some people have an impression that our most academic kids are not served well here. Let me just read to you the AP courses that are being offered in September. I believe for a school with about 100 students per grade level, this is a significant order. AP Art History, AP Studio Art, AP Music Theory. English 4, Literature and Composition. English 3, Language and Composition. Calculus, AP. Statistics, AP. Music Theory, AP. Biology, AP. Chemistry, AP. Environmental Science, AP. U.S. History 2, AP. Psychology, AP. French, AP. Spanish Language and Culture, AP. Again, for a school with between 95 and 105 kids at each grade level, that's a significant number of AP courses. The beauty of the AP courses, they're not overcrowded. They serve a beautiful number of kids in which to reach. And the instruction that I have observed from staff members is exceptional. So our academic students are being served in the proper capacity. We'll have new courses, some of which evolved out of two-year workforce college. So, for example, there'll be a business course next year, which students will learn the basics of forming a business, doing what they need to do to ascertain the potential to sell things from that business. And then we will partner with a group in town to have the students open a short-term store so they experience what customer service is, what inventory is, and what all the aspects of running a business are. Things are evolving. I don't like saying things that we don't do. I worried last year when I stood up here. A lot of the things I said, people thought, "You're bots," which means you're crazy in Italian. But I'm feeling pretty good that we're slowly but surely coming to fruition. We haven't set promises that we can't keep. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have kids, if they have friends and you know they're friends, if you're friendly with other parents, you understand that our present society is struggling with dealing with the social, emotional, anxiety and depression problems of youngsters. We're dealing with that every day. It is a major problem for us, especially, and believe me, do not think that we're singling out our school. This is a problem across the country, regardless of demographics, regardless of urban, rural, et cetera, et cetera. This is something that every school is dealing with. We essentially have looked at the data, and we essentially have a coterie of children and families who are at the very lowest tier of Maslow's pyramid, which is a research-based concept which says at the bottom tier, survival, essentially, is where people are. That means kids going home at night and not having a meal, meaning kids going home to an empty house, meaning kids going home to a house of violence or drugs. It means significant loss in a family that a child is dealing with. It could be based on peer difficulties. It's a major problem for us. The state has decided that this is a great time to cut state aid. And I'll deal with that. I can provide all the basic services that we need to provide by law. But I'm probably going to struggle providing SEL programs. Programs for emotional kids, programs for anxiety. And that's going to be on the heads of the politicians. As you know, I'm supposed to tell you this later at the end, but we're losing 90% of our state aid over a 6-year period. I can deal with it for most things, but I can't deal with it for kids who need social emotional support. What are we doing? At the middle school, grades 4, 5, 6, and 7, we now have essentially a wellness class run by Mrs. Marinaro that is a fluid class, kids coming in and out as needed. Ms. Marinaro has demonstrated significant skills working with kids who are in a state of trauma or emotional distress. So they might be in her class a period a day, they might be there all day, depending on the day. That has worked pretty well for us, and she's only been doing it a short time. Next year, in September, at the high school, Mr. Bonato is very supportive of a similar program, and we believe we have an excellent teacher who can implement a similar program for grades 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Does that solve our problems? No. But it helps us deal with the issues of some kids. I get a lot of emails from parents, understandably so, asking us about what we're trying to do with social emotional learning. I told the faculty the other day at our in-service, you're not going to hear this too often from a superintendent. I'm not worried about test scores. I'm worried about kids' wellness. If a child is safe and secure and is being taken care of, and the most important factor for that is a caring adult, and if that caring adult is in school, that child will do better. Our test scores aren't great. All the things we do to try to improve test scores, they're not working. We need to revise what we're doing. And I firmly believe in my heart, I've only been doing this 47 years as an educator, in my heart, taking care of kids is going to get the improvement we're looking for. We'll see.
And it's worth noting that a lot of these programs that we are doing that may come across as this is an academic program, this isn't necessarily tied to SEL. In fact, it is, because when you look at things like these clubs that we're forming, these CT programs where there's a cohort of students working together over several years together in a tight-knit group. I mean, I'm looking over at seeing Mr. Zimmerman there. He's like the Pied Piper with these students. They never want to leave him, right? And that is social emotional learning and support, right? So if you can find programs in the schools, they don't have to necessarily be, this is a social emotional learning program. Come here and be socially, emotionally, like these can be programs where kids know they feel safe. Like Mr. D said, there's a teacher that loves on them, and they can be together. This is part of the philosophy and the lens through which we're trying to view a lot of this stuff. And Mr. D, sorry, he got us kicked out of Trenton the other day because we went down there for another reason, and he said he really came down hard on them on this 90% state aid because, look, they need to hear from us, the ones that are there, about how important some of these things are. And if you ever doubt that your superintendent is not out there advocating for the students of this district, I will tell you, we were almost escorted out of there because of the passion with which he shared our frustration over the state aid cut.
I'm sure he's gotten kicked out of better places.
Yeah, right.
One of the other items we're dealing with regarding social emotional learning has to do with an increased population of children from other countries. This is a little bit hard to explain, so please bear with me. We have a program for kids who arrive in the United States and don't speak English. It's called an English Language Learners Program, or English as a Second Language. We've had one teacher do that for some time. She's quite excellent. We had an influx of students, especially last summer. The number of ESL students practically doubled, and in one language, they went over the number requiring a bilingual program. A teacher who speaks English and Spanish and teaches the kids in native language and the new language. We got a waiver for that because, A, the number wasn't that high over the base, and B, we had a second teacher gaining her ESL certification who was also a native speaker of the language. So we doubled ESL services for the kids in that program. We have 3 languages we're dealing with. There are about 35 kids, and I say about because the numbers constantly change, the transient population. We have about 35 kids. 2 of them are from an Eastern European country. 1 of them is from Russia, and the rest are Spanish children. Okay? So we're dealing with teaching those kids English. God bless them. They learned very quickly. Last year, an ESL student made the National Honor Society at our high school. One of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my life. Additional to that, we have children who come from other countries, but who do speak English to a certain degree. They are all tested when they come in. And those tests tell whether or not they need English language services. And a majority of them don't. The reason that we doubled last year is we had an influx of children from one country. And these are families that communicate with each other. If they settle in a place that's comfortable to them, the relatives know and the relatives don't. And I am overwhelmed with what I've seen from the kids and their parents. We started a cultural enhancement club with Mrs. Martinez, who, if you have a high school student, you might know is a truly excellent staff member. She's trying to get kids aware of, they had a Chinese New Year celebration yesterday. She's trying to get kids aware of the cultural differences and the idea that what makes our country different is that we're made up, not of a homogeneous population, but of a very widespread population. So we're working with that carefully in terms of trying to make those kids are fine, right? Making their families comfortable in their new environment. So one of the things that we will do with Ms. Martinez and her group, we will be hosting a night for all families who come over from other countries, because the numbers are high, and it's an interesting and positive challenge. I didn't mention mindfulness, but that program I described with Mrs. Marinaro is based on the concept of mindfulness. Don't ask me for a definition of mindfulness, because every time I ask somebody who's supposedly an expert in mindfulness, I get a separate definition. It's amazing. It has more definitions. But it has to do with the spiritual nature of feeling good, and that can have carryover to other places. Joe, did I leave anything out that you needed to correct me on? I still got to do the future.
Let's keep going.
All right, so the future is interesting. We have begun, I'm hoping that this happens again next year, but we're beginning to see a leveling off of our enrollment loss. As you know, Hopatcong in the last 12 years lost 35% of its student body. Not uncommon in Sussex County, but 35% is heavy. That means we're losing about 100 to 150 students a year This year, we lost 50. It's a lesser number. Obviously, that has to do with the fact that people are moving in and buying some of the homes that are available. And that's a positive thing. I'm hoping that the enrollment continues to level off. I don't mention this topic in public because it causes ire and anger. I am not happy with the choice situation, and I have no trouble with the concept. I have no trouble with the idea of the choice school. I have no trouble with the idea that choice was supposedly founded to get other schools to compete. I love to compete. What bothers me about choice is there's no intention to change it. Our neighbor Lenape is an excellent school. Hopatcong can make all the efforts in the world to be as good as Lenape, and we will be, but we will never become a choice school. Lenape, under the current law, is in perpetuity a choice school. That's BS to me. And that kills me. I feel that that's a personal insult. I feel it's inequitable. I've discussed this very specifically with Senator Oroho, who is excellent in listening, but obviously could do little. I've explained it to Trenton. I've said it in these meetings 100 times. I don't have trouble with the concept. I have trouble with the fact that it doesn't change. Schools are even dropping out of choice, and the state is not replacing them. So you can never become a choice school. And what was the criteria for becoming a choice school?
And just to articulate the point, because we're very passionate about the choice school topic, another thing that got us kicked out of Trenton. But something to know is, and this just to put it so it makes really clear sense. If you have 115 students in a particular class, and 15 of those students leave to go to a different school district, a lot of times those students are the highest performing academic students. Now, they're not better students, they're not worse students, they're just higher performing academically speaking, right? If you take those 15 students, the highest performing academic students, and you remove it from the average, well, that's going to bring down your scores. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it brings down your reputation. And it hurts. I'm not shouting because I'm mad, although I am. If you take those 15 students, those are our students. They have become high-performing academic students because of the education they receive from pre-K through 8 here. So it's not as if we did not contribute to that, and that's what pains me the most. And so that, I guess, when you look at 15 out of 115, it's a huge percentage, and that hurts our scores.
We're going to stop talking about choice now. District finances. It's like a balance that goes back and forth. I have received this year $1 million from the cell company. I'll receive another $1 million in July from the cell company. And Hudson Maxim, it looks like we're actually going to sell it. We're expecting 2 offers in writing between now and the next board meeting. I hope that it happens. But that's a lot of money for a school district to have all at one time. Now, by law, we can put some of that in a legal reserve fund and don't have to touch it for 3 to 5 years. Remember, the board said you can't use it to sustain the regular budget. So I can't use it for salaries. I can't use it for stuff that the experts. I understand that. But we do have a need for initiatives, and that's where we're spending that money. Now, do we bend the rules a little? Yeah, but not too much. At the same time we got all that income, this year, state aid will be cut by $880,000 if the schedule is true. Next year, $1.1 million, and it continues to increase. Until year 6, we lose $2.2 million. I don't know if that will come to fruition. Maybe some people will come to their senses prior to that.
That's not an overall number. That's when he says
That's each year.
that's each year.
So we're losing 90% of what we have. We haven't raised taxes. The district hasn't raised taxes in 5 years. There'll be no raise of tax this year, with one possible exception, which I'll explain. But before I explain that, we came to an agreement with the Teachers Association. We now need to come to an agreement with the other groups, the custodians, the paras, the secretaries, and the administrators. And when we do that, we'll have a reduction in state aid and health benefits costs, which will allow us to survive the $880,000 cut, give or take a few dollars. So we had an excellent negotiation. It took forever, and I give the teachers here significant credit. Because if we didn't settle this year, this would be 3 years without a contract. And I'm very honored to work with them and their group. So the district finances are the tale of two cities, so to speak. In some ways, they're really good. In some ways, they're not. The taxes. All was normal. This year, no rate. I get a call from the town, and I have great respect for the mayor and the town administrator. Art, we got to raise your sewer rates. So what do you mean? He says, as you may know from reading the newspaper or attending meetings, they're changing the way sewer rates are processed. I essentially said to the mayor and the town administrator, you're telling me if a child takes a pee in his house, takes a pee at school, it's a different amount of money for the water that he uses to flood. And that's what they're telling me. I said, I would appreciate if you would consider not charging the school. They're going to double the sewer fee. I said, I'd appreciate it if you did not include us in the sewer fee cost. They said, no, we can't do that. And I said, I might raise the taxes, the amount of sewers go up. Because I can't afford new costs under the circumstances of the state aid cut. We'll see what happens, I'm not sure.
There was a musical called Urinetown, and it's a very similar premise. That's all.
We've gone 54 minutes. That's exactly what I intended to do here. If you have questions, please take a minute. Bring the card up to Miss Katie. We'll be back in a minute and we'll answer any questions. One of the questions has to do with our sports teams. There seems to be some worry that we might not have enough kids to field our teams. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a lot of teams, so we have no trouble filling them. We did have one difficulty last year with baseball. We have a new coach coming aboard. We have a coach who has professional experience as a baseball player. His numbers are already up from last year with the signups we had. So I'm very comfortable. I'm very close to the sports teams. I watch all the kids practice. I watch games. I travel with them sometimes. The sports thing is an important item in a comprehensive high school. I feel we're very strong in that particular area. Will the cosmetology program count towards admission to a trade school? Or will the student receive a certification? The students will take a third-party test. The person we're recruiting to teach cosmetology is the former head of the cosmetology program at Sussex County Community College. Her record for kids passing the certification exam is exceptional. Additionally, in cosmetology, we will run a course that will be open to students who might have an IEP or a 504 plan, who need some accommodations. We will essentially teach them the basics that will allow them entry-level employment in a salon.
So to be clear, that third-party assessment is the New Jersey Board of Cosmetology certificate exam. So there's a practical exam and there's a written exam. That's all you need to be a cosmetologist, certified cosmetologist. So yes, it has all the hours built in, for those of you who are familiar with that. That's all built into that program.
How will the sports and activities that currently use the auxiliary gym be affected? I hear they're not happy. I encourage people to tell me if they're not happy, they need to come to me and let me know that. So I don't disbelieve you, but I have not heard that, okay? Our gym is gigantic. We can use the large gym we have to house more than just a basketball practice or something like that. Additionally, half of the auxiliary gym should still be usable for, say, either the cheerleaders or the wrestlers or whoever's there. When will the high school makerspace be completed? I just sent in the orders for furniture so that the Z-Space computers will have furniture to support people using them, and the orders, they don't exactly rush them, but we have sent the purchase orders in. Joe, number of kids, number of classes available that take with concurrent SCCC.
8. The question, how many courses are available at the high school that hold with it concurrent credits through SCCC? 8. That's in the curriculum handbook that all the students have. So it looks like this. You can see that I'm not lying. I'll leave it here.
That's my copy with my notes in it.
Don't take this one. I'll mail one to you. Just give me your address. Thank you.
This is a great question. How sustainable are the new programs once the money is spent? Remember, we're not using the new money to sustain the programs, just to start them. So, the teacher that we hire for cosmetology or construction, their salary can't be taken out of the cell tower money or Hudson Maxim money. We have to find money in the budget for that. What we're doing is we're reprioritizing. As people retire, we're replacing them in a different manner. For example, Mr. Justice, an excellent and great teacher for many years at the high school, retired. He was replaced by with a construction person. Mr. Justice was a hands-on person, but not a construction person. The cosmetology will be a new situation. One of our staff is very concerned about no librarian or media specialist. We'll be hiring a media specialist at our next meeting. My recommendation to the board will be that she be full-time next year. She'll replace a computer teacher who's retiring, and we're not going to replace. So there's a lot of different ways to weigh things. We need to make things sustainable. We understand that. But we're not depending upon that $2 million. So the question is, will the CTE programs be open to students with IEPs? Obviously, I just answered that, yes. Okay? They can take the certification programs or the entry level. There'll be entry level in construction skills. Construction skills teacher also has a landscaping cert, so we will do landscaping construction. And if you ever go to Quick Check, how many landscaping trucks do you see at Quick Check in 2 hours? A lot. And that's the kind of partnership we'll try to build. We'll invite people in, tell us what you need from kids who are going to be entering the workforce.
And as you're hearing these CTE programs, if you or someone you know is in that field, we want to talk to them, because we always find the conversations with people in the industry are really helpful, because frankly it's in their best interest to talk to us, because we're going to be the ones providing people that will then be asking to get a job with them. So if we can work together, we can help cultivate the skills that they need, and it just becomes a really helpful reciprocal arrangement.
Somebody asked, will the Hudson Maxim principal be sold with the school? And the answer is yes. I'm only kidding.
He's impregnating it.
That's right.
Of all the people I interact with in Hopatcong, she is the champion at zinging me, so I had to get her. The track is currently safe. What will happen this spring's track season? All track meets this year will be away. We were scheduled for 2 home meets against Wallkill and Tech. Both of those meets will be moved for safety reasons. I can't hear you.
Where will they practice?
They'll be able to work around the difficulties. We will be able to do patchwork. That will be very temporarily. As soon as the season's over, we'll begin work on the new track. Thank you. Will a larger variety of foreign languages be offered at lower grades? Right now, that is not a plan. However, we're awaiting final word from the state on certification issues with foreign language teachers at the elementary level. We could put forth computerized online programs. We're not sure we're going to be able to do that anymore. They're getting very strict on health and phys ed certification. Right now, if I'm a third grade teacher, I could teach health and phys ed. They're beginning to change that. We expect them to do the same with foreign languages, so that's a wait and see thing. Have steps been taken to introduce a junior ROTC program? I have not taken those steps. I cannot answer that question intelligently. I'll have to speak to Mr. Bonato to ascertain if that has been done in the past. It hasn't been here in my time here. I got a lot of questions about the auxiliary gym. I'm not skipping anything. Are teachers able to recommend clubs for students who may be shy or introverted? Last year when I did the State of the District, I mentioned a significant number of additional clubs that we put forth. There were about a dozen of them, okay? And so the answer is yes, we're trying to encourage kids to participate in after-school activities, of which there have been an expanded number. This is a great question. Is there a possibility we can negotiate a better contract for busing so school can be pushed to a later start time? Our kids need to rest and be prepared for better learning. The answer to that is not simple. The answer is yes, I can do that. However, the cost is the problem. So right now, we have routes with Byram Bus. Those routes are tiered. They're tiered with Lenape Valley. They're tiered with our own district. They're tiered with Byram, okay? The Byram schools start much later than our schools. Next year, if the negotiation we're currently in goes through, we will start a few minutes later and they will start even later, and I'm not sure they're going to agree to that. But because the routes are tiered, that means if I own a bus company, my bus runs 3 different routes. It's manageable and it's less expensive to the people who contract out. So I might be spending $32,000 on a Byram route right now. If I rebid that and just had it for us so I can start later, it's going to cost me $55,000, $60,000. And I say that experientially. I'm not just making that up. Okay? I've had the conversation with Byram Bus, and I'm going to be totally upfront with you. Byram Bus has done its best to help us and be cooperative with us. Sometimes their service is a little shaky. And we're sort of stuck. Do we rebid? Remember, we don't have to accept the bids. The second problem is there's no one accepting bids around here. I went to Kraft. That's a new bus company, just came into Jersey. No luck. First Student, totally booked. They don't have any ability to expand right now. So there's a difficulty in finding new bus contractors to get buses from, and it's definitely going to cost a lot of money.
And tangentially, with talking about bus drivers, that's another thing we've been looking at, is because you just heard we're having trouble with buses in general. We're looking into the possibility of working with commercial driver's license certificates as another potential program. We're exploring that right now.
SCCC.
Yeah.
160 program.
It's
The child is 18 years old, and about 65% of our students in their senior year are 18 years old. They go to the college. They can take the pre-courses at our school. They go to the college to take the driver part of things. Guaranteed jobs. The cost of the program is $6,000. Question is, can you come up with $6,000 to pay for a program that guarantees you a job with reasonably high pay? Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question about and I get it with the tier time. Is there a possibility that you can survey the town, see? I'm in favor of raising my taxes so that my kids go to school year. I have 4. My kids go very much sleep. They're in bed at 8. So we're up right after 5. It's not enough.
If state aid wasn't going to be cut the way it is, I could have that conversation. But I'm eventually going to have to raise taxes because of the state aid cut. Unless I fire 10 people, which I don't want to do. Remember, we have 7 less administrators now than we did 2 years ago. But I can't cut teaching staff members. How much will the taxes go up because of the sewers? I love it. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about $50,000 for the whole thing, and I'm probably not going to do that. But I had to try my best with the town. You know, they were tough, though.
It's less than a quarter per quarter
Yeah,
per
I-
household, just to give you, for household,
Thank you for that information.
$1 a year.
Troops.
Troops, all right.
I think I have one more question. Why not offer TREPS at the middle school? TREPS is a program where kids become entrepreneurs. They make something or they create something and then they sell it. It's a good program. I don't have an excuse for not having it. I would need somebody to be advisors for it, and B, I'd have to come up with the money to pay them. It's a pretty intense program in terms of time. No excuse. I will have the conversation with the proper people at that middle school. Ladies and gentlemen, we have covered all the questions. We've covered all of the information. I'm very grateful that you've come out on a night like this. If you have any questions, Joe and I answer emails pretty quickly. If you need to sit with us face to face, the door's open. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.